I used to believe that 15 years of marriage meant something, that the vows we spoke in front of God, family, and friends created an unbreakable bond, that the woman who bore my children, who slept beside me every night, who knew my deepest fears and dreams, would never shatter everything we'd built together. My name is David, and this is the story of how my world collapsed in a single evening, and how I rebuilt it stronger than before. It was a Tuesday in October when everything changed, the kind of crisp autumn day that makes you grateful to be alive. I'd just finished coaching my son Tommy's soccer practice, watching him score his first goal this season. Sarah had picked up our daughter Emma from dance class, and we were settling into our usual evening routine in our suburban home on Maple Street. "I'll get it," Sarah called out, wiping flour from her hands. She'd been making Emma's favorite chocolate chip cookies, the kitchen filled with that warm, homey smell that used to represent everything good about our life together. I heard muffled voices at the door, then Sarah's laughter, that musical sound I'd fallen in love with in college. She returned to the kitchen with a broad smile. Standing in our doorway were Marcus and Beth, a couple who appeared to be about our age. Marcus was tall and lean with an easy smile and confident handshake. Beth seemed quieter, almost shy, with kind eyes that reminded me of my sister. "We brought wine," Marcus said, holding up a bottle. "Figured we should properly introduce ourselves to the neighborhood." Sarah's eyes lit up. She always loved entertaining, loved making new friends. "How wonderful! David, get some glasses. Kids, come say hello." Within minutes, our kitchen was filled with laughter and conversation. Marcus regaled us with stories about their cross-country move, their house-hunting adventures, his work in marketing. He was the kind of guy who commanded attention without trying, charismatic, funny, effortlessly charming. "We should have you over for dinner this weekend," Sarah suggested. Already planning in that way she did. "I make a mean lasagna." "That sounds perfect," Beth replied, though I noticed she kept glancing at Marcus, as if seeking his approval. Marcus grinned. "We'd love that." "Fair warning, though. I'm known for my pranks. Keeps life interesting, you know." Sarah laughed. "Oh, David here is way too serious. A little mischief might be good for him." Something about the way Marcus looked at my wife in that moment made my stomach tighten. It was barely noticeable, a quick glance that lingered just a second too long, a smile that seemed too knowing. But I pushed the feeling aside. I was being paranoid, reading too much into nothing. Over the following weeks, Marcus and Beth became fixtures in our lives. They joined us for backyard barbecues, weekend dinners, kids' birthday parties. Marcus was always the life of the party, pulling harmless pranks that made everyone laugh, hiding behind doors to startle people, switching salt and sugar, putting plastic wrap over toilet seats. Sarah found his antics hilarious. She'd giggle like a teenager when he'd sneak up behind her in the kitchen, when he'd playfully steal bites of her cooking, when he'd challenge her to ridiculous contests like who could balance a spoon on their nose the longest. I tried to find it amusing too, but something about their dynamic bothered me. The way Marcus always seemed to find excuses to touch Sarah's arm, her shoulder, her hand. The way Sarah's cheeks would flush when he complimented her cooking, her dress, her laugh. The way they'd share inside jokes I wasn't part of. "You're being ridiculous," I told myself. "They're just friends. Sarah loves you. She chose you." But doubt is like a splinter. Once it's under your skin, it's impossible to ignore. The first real incident happened during a dinner party at our house. We'd invited 3 other couples from the neighborhood, and the wine was flowing freely. Marcus had been particularly animated that evening, telling elaborate stories about his college days, his travels, his various misadventures. "I need to grab something from the car," Marcus announced after dinner, standing and stretching. "Sarah, want to help me carry some things?" When they returned, Sarah's hair was slightly mussed, her lipstick gone, her cheeks flushed. Marcus had grass stains on his knees and a satisfied smirk on his face. "Oh, you know Marcus," Sarah said with a breathless laugh. "He locked his keys in the car, and we had to figure out how to get them out. It was quite the adventure." But I'd seen Marcus's car keys on our kitchen counter when he'd first arrived. The other guests were too polite to comment, but I caught a few exchanged glances, raised eyebrows. Beth looked mortified, staring down at her hands. My heart pounded as I excused myself to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The man looking back at me seemed older than his 42 years, stress lines etched around his eyes, graying hair at his temples. "You're imagining things," I whispered to myself. Sarah wouldn't. She couldn't. But when I returned to the living room, I noticed Sarah straightening her blouse, noticed the way she avoided my eyes for the rest of the evening. The next few weeks were torture. Every interaction between Sarah and Marcus felt loaded with hidden meaning. Every smile, every laugh, every casual touch sent jealousy coursing through my veins like poison. And I started paying attention to details I'd previously overlooked. The way Sarah would spend extra time getting ready when she knew Marcus would be around. The way she'd check her phone constantly, smiling at messages she'd quickly delete. The way she'd make excuses to go outside when she saw Marcus in his yard. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked one evening as we prepared for bed. "You seem distant lately." I wanted to confront her, to demand the truth, but fear held me back. Fear that my suspicions were correct. Fear that everything I'd built my life around was a lie. "Just work stress," I lied, climbing into bed beside the woman I was no longer sure I knew. She reached for me, her hand sliding across my chest, and I felt nothing but revulsion. How could she touch me like that if she was betraying me? How could she sleep peacefully beside me while carrying on with another man? I lay awake most nights, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with questions I was afraid to ask. During the day, I went through the motions of normalcy. Work, kids' activities, household chores, while inside, I was dying. The breaking point came 3 weeks later, at another dinner party. This time, we were at Marcus and Beth's house. Their home was similar to ours, but somehow felt different. Darker, more adult, filled with expensive furniture and abstract art I didn't understand. Beth had prepared an elaborate meal, but she seemed nervous, jumpy, constantly checking on everyone, refilling drinks, apologizing for dishes that were perfectly fine. Marcus, on the other hand, was in his element. He'd set up a sound system that filled the house with jazz music, opened bottles of wine that probably cost more than my car payment, regaled us with stories that had everyone laughing. I watched him like a hawk, cataloging every interaction with my wife, the way he'd brush past her when moving through the kitchen, the way he'd lean close to whisper in her ear, making her laugh, the way his hand would linger on her back when he'd guide her through doorways. After dinner, we moved to the living room for drinks and conversation. I was nursing my second scotch, trying to appear relaxed while my insides churned with suspicion and rage. "Anyone up for a game?" Marcus suggested, producing a deck of cards. "I know some great party games." Sarah clapped her hands together. "Oh, I love games. What did you have in mind?" "How about truth or dare?" Marcus grinned, and something about his expression made my blood run cold. "Aren't we a little old for that?" I interjected, but everyone else seemed enthusiastic. "Come on, David," Sarah laughed, settling onto the couch beside me. "Don't be such a stick in the mud." We arranged ourselves in a circle, and Marcus began dealing cards to determine who would go first. The game started innocently enough. Silly questions about embarrassing moments, harmless dares like singing a song or doing a dance. But gradually, Marcus's suggestions became more provocative. He dared Beth to share her most romantic fantasy. He asked another neighbor about their wildest sexual experience. Each question, each dare, pushed boundaries a little further. "Truth or dare?" Marcus asked, his eyes fixed on my wife with an intensity that made my jaw clench. "Dare," Sarah replied without hesitation, and I wanted to shake her, to ask her what the hell she was thinking. Marcus smiled slowly. "I dare you to let me blindfold you and feed you something mystery." I watched in horror as Marcus produced a silk scarf from somewhere and approached my wife. His fingers brushed her cheek as he tied the blindfold, and I saw her shiver at his touch. What happened next will be burned into my memory forever. Marcus fed Sarah a piece of chocolate, but instead of simply placing it in her mouth, he let his finger linger on her lips. Sarah's tongue darted out to lick the chocolate from his finger, and a soft moan escaped her throat. The room fell silent. Everyone could see what was happening, could feel the sexual tension crackling between my wife and this man. "That's enough," I said, standing abruptly. "Sarah, take off the blindfold. We're leaving." But Sarah was lost in whatever spell Marcus had cast over her. She reached out blindly, her hands finding his chest, and whispered, "More." I don't remember the walk home. I don't remember putting the kids to bed or going through the motions of our evening routine. All I remember is the rage building inside me like a nuclear reactor approaching meltdown. "What the hell was that about?" I demanded as soon as our bedroom door closed. She was already in her nightgown, brushing her hair at the vanity. What about? Don't play dumb with me, Sarah. That little performance with Marcus tonight. The blindfold, the chocolate, the way you touched him. She turned to face me, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt? Fear? But then her expression hardened. It was just a game, David. A silly party game. You're completely overreacting. Am I? Because, from where I was sitting, it looked like you were getting off on having another man's hands on you in front of our friends. That's disgusting, she snapped. How can you even think that? Marcus is our friend. Our neighbor. I would never. Wouldn't you? I interrupted. Because I've been watching, Sarah. I've seen the way you act around him. The way you laugh at his jokes, the way you touch his arm, the way you disappear together for 20 minutes at a time. The night he supposedly locked his keys in his car? I saw those keys on our kitchen counter, Sarah. So where were you really? What were you really doing? She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her mind racing, searching for an explanation, an excuse, another lie. We were just talking, she said finally. He was upset about something with work, and I was trying to help him. Nothing happened, David. Nothing inappropriate. But I could see the truth in her eyes, could hear the lie in her voice. My wife, the mother of my children, the woman I'd loved for half my life, was betraying me with our neighbor. Tears sprang to her eyes. David, please, you have to trust me. I love you. I would never hurt you like that. But trust, once broken, is almost impossible to repair. And deep down, I knew she was lying. The weeks following that confrontation were a blur of paranoia and detective work. I became someone I didn't recognize. Suspicious, secretive, consumed with uncovering the truth about my wife's infidelity. I installed tracking software on Sarah's phone when she wasn't looking. I created fake social media accounts to monitor her online activity. I started leaving work early to drive by our house, watching for any sign of Marcus's presence. Text messages between Sarah and Marcus that were deleted minutes after being sent. Phone calls that lasted hours while I was at work. Photos of Sarah in lingerie that I'd never seen before, sent to a number I traced back to Marcus. The evidence was overwhelming, but it was all digital, easily dismissed as coincidence or misunderstanding. I needed something concrete, something undeniable. I told Sarah I had to travel to Chicago for a business conference, a 3-day trip that would give her plenty of time to act on whatever was brewing between her and Marcus. But instead of going to Chicago, I checked into a hotel 15 minutes from our house and began surveillance. On the first night, nothing happened. Sarah picked up the kids from school, made dinner, helped with homework, went to bed at her usual time. I began to wonder if I was losing my mind, if my jealousy had driven me to paranoid delusions. I was parked across the street from our house, hidden behind a landscaping truck, when I saw Marcus's BMW pull into our driveway at 9:30 p.m. The kids would be asleep by then. Sarah would be alone. My heart hammered against my ribs as I watched Marcus walk to our front door. He didn't knock. Sarah opened it before he could, as if she'd been waiting by the window. They embraced immediately, kissing with a passion that made me want to vomit. I grabbed my camera and started taking pictures, the telephoto lens capturing every intimate detail. Sarah leading Marcus upstairs by the hand. Lights going on in our bedroom, the bedroom where my children had been conceived, where Sarah and I had made love thousands of times over the years. For 2 hours I sat in that car, watching shadows move behind the curtains of my own bedroom window, knowing that my wife was betraying me in the most intimate way possible. When Marcus finally left at midnight, sneaking out our back door like the coward he was, I had dozens of photographs and a plan forming in my mind. I wasn't just going to confront Sarah this time. I wasn't going to give her another chance to lie, to manipulate, to gaslight me into doubting my own eyes. I was going to expose her infidelity in a way that would make denial impossible. Over the next 2 weeks, I documented everything. I hired a private investigator to conduct additional surveillance. I copied Sarah's text messages, her emails, her browser history. I tracked her movements, her phone calls, her credit card purchases. Yay! The picture that emerged was devastating. Sarah and Marcus had been carrying on their affair for over 3 months. They'd been meeting at hotels, at his house when Beth was away, even in our own home when I was at work and the kids were at school. Sarah had bought new lingerie, sexy dresses, expensive perfume, all charged to credit cards I paid for, all for the benefit of another man. She'd lied about working late, about girls' nights out, about volunteering at the kids' school. Every lie was documented, every deception recorded. But the evidence that broke me was a video message Sarah had sent to Marcus, recorded in our bathroom while I was downstairs, making breakfast for our children. "I can't stop thinking about yesterday," Sarah whispered to the camera, wearing nothing but a towel. "The way you touched me, the things you said. I've never felt anything like that before. I know this is wrong, I know I should stop, but I can't. I don't want to. I love you, Marcus. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone." I watched that video 17 times before I finally accepted what it meant. My marriage was over. The woman I'd loved for 20 years had fallen in love with someone else, but I wasn't going to let her destroy our family without consequences. I wasn't going to let her paint me as the villain in her story of self-discovery and new love. I was going to make sure everyone knew exactly who Sarah really was beneath the facade of the devoted wife and mother. The plan I devised was simple but devastating. I would gather our closest friends and family members, people who'd known us as a couple, who'd celebrated our anniversaries and supported us through difficult times. I would present them with undeniable evidence of Sarah's betrayal. I would let them see the real Sarah, the woman who could smile at our children's birthday parties while sexting with their neighbor. Most importantly, I would force Sarah to face the consequences of her choices in front of the people whose opinions mattered most to her. I chose a Saturday evening for the confrontation. I'd spent weeks planning every detail, anticipating every possible reaction, preparing for every excuse Sarah might offer. I invited our closest friends and family to our house under the pretense of celebrating our wedding anniversary. Sarah was suspicious at first. I hadn't shown much interest in celebrating anything lately, but she went along with it, probably thinking it meant our marriage was getting back on track. "I'm so glad you planned this," she said that morning, squeezing my hand across the breakfast table. I was worried we were growing apart. The irony of her words made my stomach turn, but I managed to smile. "We need to talk about a lot of things tonight." By 7 o'clock, our living room was filled with the people who mattered most to us. Sarah's parents, who'd flown in from Florida thinking they were celebrating their daughter's happy marriage. My brother Mike and his wife Jennifer, who'd been our best man and maid of honor. Our closest friends from the neighborhood, couples we'd shared countless dinners and holidays with over the years. Everyone except Marcus and Beth, who I had deliberately excluded from the guest list. Sarah was radiant that evening, wearing a blue dress I'd bought her for our last anniversary, playing the role of the happy wife to perfection. She laughed at everyone's jokes, served drinks and appetizers, reminisced about our early days together with the skill of a seasoned actress. "You two are such an inspiration," Sarah's mother said, hugging her daughter. 20 years of marriage and still so in love. It's rare these days." I watched Sarah's face as her mother spoke, saw the flicker of guilt across her features before she forced another smile. "We've been blessed," Sarah replied, looking directly at me. "David is an amazing husband and father. I couldn't ask for more." The lies came so easily to her. I wondered how long she'd been practicing deception, how many times she'd looked me in the eye and told me she loved me while thinking about another man. After dinner, I stood up and clinked my wine glass with a fork, calling everyone's attention. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I began, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Sarah and I wanted to share something important with the people who matter most to us. Sarah looked confused but pleased, probably expecting a romantic speech about our enduring love. "Marriage is about trust," I continued. "It's about honesty, commitment, fidelity. It's about building a life together based on shared values and mutual respect." Murmurs of agreement filled the room. Sarah's smile was starting to look strained. "Unfortunately," I said, reaching for the manila folder I'd placed on the side table, "not everyone takes those vows seriously." I opened the folder and pulled out the first photograph, Sarah and Marcus kissing on our front porch. I held it up for everyone to see. "This was taken 3 nights ago, while I was supposedly in Chicago on business." Gasps filled the room. Sarah's mother dropped her wine glass, red liquid spreading across our carpet like blood. I pulled out more photographs, Marcus leaving our house at midnight, Sarah in lingerie in our bedroom window, the two of them embracing in his car in a hotel parking lot. "For the past 4 months," I said, my voice growing stronger with each word, "my wife has been having an affair with our neighbor Marcus. These photos document their relationship, but they're just the beginning." I moved to our television and connected my laptop, pulling up the video message Sarah had sent to Marcus. This was recorded in our bathroom last Tuesday morning, right after I kissed Sarah goodbye and told her I loved her. Sarah's own voice filled the room, breathy and intimate, confessing her love for another man. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah looked around the room at the faces of everyone she loved, all staring at her with shock and disappointment. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she didn't deny it. "I never meant for this to happen," she whispered. It happened." "Nothing just happens," I said, my anger finally breaking through my controlled facade. "You made choices, Sarah. Every day for 4 months, you chose to lie to me, to betray our family, to destroy everything we built together." "The time for private conversations is over," I replied. "You gave up the right to privacy when you decided to film yourself, confessing your love to another man in our home." My brother Mike stood up, his face flushed with anger. "How could you do this to David, to your children? Where are Emma and Tommy?" Sarah's mother asked suddenly, looking around as if noticing for the first time that her grandchildren weren't present. "They're staying with my sister tonight," I explained. "I didn't want them to witness this conversation." Sarah collapsed onto the couch, her facade finally crumbling completely. "I'm so sorry," she kept repeating. "I'm so sorry." But sorry wasn't enough. Sorry didn't undo 4 months of lies and betrayal. Sorry didn't erase the image of my wife in another man's arms. "I want you out of this house tonight," I said quietly. "Pack whatever you need for a few days. The rest of your things will be boxed up and delivered to wherever you're staying." "David, you can't just throw me out," Sarah protested. "This is my home too. Our children live here." "Your children will continue to live here with their father," I replied. "You lost the right to call this place home when you invited another man into our bed." The room erupted in voices. Sarah's parents trying to defend their daughter, my friends expressing their shock and support, Sarah herself begging for another chance. But I was done listening. I was done being the understanding husband, the patient father, the man who always tried to see the best in people. Sarah had shown me exactly who she really was, and I believed her. "Everyone needs to leave now," I announced. "Sarah, you have 1 hour to pack a bag and get out. After tonight, all communication between us will go through lawyers." As our friends and family filed out of the house, each stopping to offer their support or their disappointment, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. The truth was finally out. The lies were over. The charade of our happy marriage was finished. The weeks following the confrontation were simultaneously the hardest and most liberating of my life. The house felt empty without Sarah's presence, but it also felt clean, free from the poisonous atmosphere of deception that had clouded everything for months. Emma and Tommy took the news about their mother better than I'd expected. Children are remarkably resilient, and they'd sensed the tension between Sarah and me even when we thought we were hiding it well. "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" Emma asked the morning after Sarah moved out. "Yes, sweetheart," I replied, pulling her onto my lap. "But that doesn't change how much we both love you and Tommy. You'll still see Mom regularly, and our family will just look a little different." Tommy, at 8 years old, was more direct. "Is Mom not living here anymore because she was bad? How do you explain adult betrayal to a child? How do you preserve their relationship with their mother while being honest about why your marriage ended?" "Mom made some choices that hurt our family," I said carefully. "But she's still your mother, and she loves you very much. Sometimes adults make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes have big consequences." The divorce proceedings were brutal but necessary. Sarah's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive and controlling, suggesting that my public exposure of the affair was emotional abuse. But the evidence of her infidelity was overwhelming, and the prenuptial agreement we'd signed years earlier protected most of my assets. Marcus and Beth's marriage didn't survive the revelation either. Beth filed for divorce within a week of learning about the affair, and Marcus found himself facing not only the end of his marriage, but also the loss of his job when his company decided his behavior reflected poorly on their corporate values. He tried to contact me several times, claiming he wanted to apologize, to explain his side of the story. I blocked his calls and refused to see him. There was nothing he could say that would change what had happened, nothing that would repair the damage he'd helped inflict on my family. Sarah, meanwhile, spiraled into a depression that her family blamed on me. According to her sister, who called me regularly to plead Sarah's case, my wife was consumed with guilt and regret, desperate for a chance to make amends. "She made a terrible mistake," Sarah's sister Lisa said during one particularly difficult phone call. "But she loves you, David. She loves the kids. Don't you think everyone deserves a second chance?" "She didn't make a mistake," I replied, my voice steady despite the anger burning in my chest. "She made hundreds of conscious choices over 4 months. She planned each lie, each deception, each betrayal. That's not a mistake. That's a character revelation. The hardest part wasn't the legal proceedings or the social fallout, or even the loneliness of suddenly being a single father. The hardest part was rebuilding my trust in my own judgment. How had I been so blind? How had I missed the signs for so long? How could I have shared a bed with someone for 20 years and not really known who she was? I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Amanda Chen, who specialized in betrayal trauma. The sessions were painful but necessary, forcing me to confront not only Sarah's betrayal, but also my own role in the marriage's dysfunction. You didn't cause Sarah's affair, Dr. Chen reminded me during one particularly difficult session, but marriages rarely fail in isolation. There are usually patterns of communication breakdown, emotional distance, unmet needs on both sides. I'm saying that healing requires understanding the full picture. Sarah chose to handle her dissatisfaction through deception and betrayal. But if you want to avoid similar patterns in future relationships, you need to understand what went wrong. It was hard to hear, but she was right. I had been distant in recent years, focused on work and financial security at the expense of emotional intimacy. I had taken Sarah for granted, assuming that our history together guaranteed our future. That didn't excuse her infidelity, but it helped me understand how we'd grown apart. Slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild my life. I joined a support group for divorced men, where I met other fathers dealing with similar betrayals. I started exercising regularly, taking care of my body in a way I'd neglected for years. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during my marriage. Most importantly, I focused on being the best father I could be to Emma and Tommy. Without the distraction of marital conflict, I found myself more present, more attentive to their needs and interests. "Dad, you seem happier," Emma observed one evening as we worked on a jigsaw puzzle together. Out of the mouths of babes. My 10-year-old daughter had noticed something I was only beginning to recognize, that the end of my marriage, devastating as it had been, had also freed me from a relationship that was slowly poisoning my soul. The legal proceedings took 8 months to finalize. When I walked out of the courthouse with my divorce decree in hand, I felt lighter than I had in years. The chapter of my life that had been defined by Sarah's betrayal was finally closed. 2 years have passed since that devastating evening when I discovered my wife's affair. 2 years since I made the decision to expose her betrayal rather than suffer in silence. 2 years since I chose truth over comfortable lies. Today I'm sitting in my backyard watching Emma and Tommy play soccer with their friends, and I can honestly say that I'm grateful for everything that happened. That might sound crazy, being grateful for betrayal, for the destruction of my marriage, for the pain that nearly destroyed me. But the truth is, Sarah's affair forced me to confront realities I'd been avoiding for years. I had been sleepwalking through my life, going through the motions of marriage and fatherhood, without really being present. I had been so focused on providing security that I'd forgotten to nurture intimacy. I had been so committed to maintaining the appearance of happiness that I'd ignored the signs of its absence. Sarah's betrayal shattered my illusions, but it also freed me from a relationship that was built on habit rather than genuine connection. I'm not the same man I was 2 years ago. The experience of betrayal and recovery has changed me in fundamental ways. I'm more cautious now, more aware of red flags and warning signs, but I'm also more confident, more self-assured, more comfortable with who I am, when I'm not trying to be who someone else wants me to be. The children are thriving. Emma made the honor roll last semester and is captain of her volleyball team. Tommy discovered a love of music and is learning to play guitar. They spend every other weekend with Sarah, who has slowly rebuilt her life in a neighboring town. Sarah and I have achieved a cordial, co-parenting relationship. We communicate about the children's needs, attend their school events together when necessary, and maintain a civil tone in all our interactions. But we're not friends, and we never will be. Too much damage was done, too much trust was broken. She sent me a letter last year, on the anniversary of our divorce. A long, rambling apology, filled with explanations and justifications and pleas for forgiveness. She claimed that the affair was the result of a midlife crisis, that she never stopped loving me, that she would do anything to turn back time and make different choices. I read the letter once and then filed it away, not because I'm cruel or unforgiving, but because forgiveness isn't about forgetting or pretending that betrayal didn't happen. Real forgiveness is about releasing the anger and resentment that poison your own soul, not about reconciling with people who have proven themselves untrustworthy. I've started dating again, cautiously, carefully, with clear boundaries and honest communication. Last month, I met someone who might become something more. Jennifer is a teacher at Tommy's school, a widow who understands the complexities of starting over in middle age. "You're different from other men I've dated," she told me recently over dinner. "You're more honest about your past, more direct about what you want. It's refreshing." That's the gift Sarah's betrayal gave me. The ability to be authentic, to speak truth even when it's uncomfortable, to demand honesty from others because I know the cost of deception. I still have moments of anger, flashes of bitterness when I think about the years I wasted, the lies I believed, the signs I ignored. But mostly, I feel grateful. Grateful that I discovered the truth before wasting more years in a false marriage. Grateful that I had the courage to confront Sarah publicly rather than suffer in silence. Grateful that my children got to see their father stand up for himself and demand respect. Grateful that I learned who I really am when everything else is stripped away. The man who discovered his wife's affair 2 years ago was weak, naive, willing to accept crumbs of affection and call it love. The man I am today knows his worth, demands authenticity, and refuses to settle for relationships built on lies. That transformation was painful, but it was necessary. And now, watching my children laugh in the sunshine, feeling genuinely optimistic about the future for the first time in years, I know that the pain was worth it. Sarah's betrayal didn't destroy me. It revealed me. And the man it revealed is stronger, wiser, and more capable of genuine love than the man I was before. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is the worst thing that can happen to you. Sometimes betrayal is the beginning of freedom. Sometimes the end of everything you thought you wanted is the beginning of everything you actually need. The phone rings, interrupting my thoughts. It's Jennifer, calling to confirm our dinner plans for tonight. "I'm proud of you, for everything you've been through, for how you've handled it all. You're a good man." I smile, watching Tommy execute a perfect goal while Emma cheers from the sidelines.